You know those childhood fears, don't you? The ones that used to lurk under the bed, maybe, or just behind the closet door when the lights went out. Those, like, imaginary monsters born from pure imagination. But what happens when those fears, those imaginary things, what happens when they bleed into reality? Driven by something, well, far more sinister than just a bedtime story. Today, we're going to tell you a really chilling story. It unfolded in a quiet American town. It's a story about two young girls, this shared obsession they had with a fictional character, and a brutal act that just defied belief. It really makes you look closely at the lines, between fantasy and the world we actually live in.
Yeah, and our purpose in telling the story today is really to meticulously recount the events, exactly what happened, and try to understand the very strained roots of this particular belief, and explore the tragic consequences that happen when that line between fantasy and reality becomes dangerously blurred, irrecoverably, really. We'll look at what led to this shocking event, and importantly, what it might teach us about, the digital world and young, impressionable minds.
Okay, so let's start with the figure at the center of it all, Slender Man. Now, when you hear Slender Man, you might think of some, ancient myth, right? Something old.
Exactly, like folklore.
Yeah, folklore whispered around campfires for ages. But here's where it gets really interesting. Slender Man isn't ancient at all, not even close. He's a completely modern creation, born in 2009 from an online Photoshop contest, believe it or not. A man named Eric Knudsen, using the alias Victor Surge, submitted these edited images of this tall, eerie figure into a forum thread. And boom, a digital legend was born almost instantly. And his appearance is, it's instantly recognizable and deeply unsettling. He's shown as this towering male figure, always dressed impeccably in a dark suit. But his arms and legs are unnaturally long, giving him this distorted, almost spider-like look.
Yeah.
And his face, that's the really creepy part. It's completely featureless. No eyes, no ears, no nose, no mouth, just pale, blank.
Blank canvas, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes he's even shown with these, tentacle things coming out of his back, which just adds to the whole monstrous vibe. And the lore, the stories that grew up around him really fast, say he likes to hang out in dark forests, maybe in a hidden mansion, just lurking.
Yeah.
And his preference, chillingly, it's children. He's believed to lure them away, take them.
And what's really fascinating and frankly deeply concerning is how fast something completely made up, right? A human construct from a creative contest. How quickly that can become so pervasive and, for some people, so deeply believed. Despite being totally fake, Slender Man just exploded online. He got adapted into video games. And I can tell you, playing those games, even knowing it wasn't real, it was genuinely scary. Really unnerving.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
And beyond games, he branched into films, TV series. This viral spread is so crucial because, despite his clear fictional origin, a significant number of people, especially young, impressionable kids, came to believe he was actually real. This isn't just about entertainment anymore, it's about the real power of these shared digital stories, and how easily that line between make-believe and what feels real can just erode.
And that erosion, that blurring line, brings us to the three main people in this story. Payton, Morgan, and Anissa. They were all around 12 years old, living in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Pretty normal town. Payton, from all accounts, was just a really sweet, kind, empathetic kid. She noticed Morgan often seemed lonely at school, kind of struggled with social stuff, felt isolated. So Payton, being Payton, reached out. They became friends. Then Anissa arrived, new student. Anissa pretty quickly realized she and Morgan shared these more eccentric interests, and they formed this really close bond fast, which often left Payton feeling kind of like the third wheel, on the outside. It was really Anissa who sparked the obsession that changed everything. She had this deep, almost consuming interest in horror, the supernatural. Spent a lot of time on the Creepypasta Wiki.
Right, that website full of user-created horror stories, urban legends.
Yeah, exactly. And it was there she found all the Slender Man lore. She read about this tall, suited guy with no face who stalked kids, and she became convinced, utterly convinced he existed. Her belief just got deeper and deeper the more she read, immersing herself in that world. And then Anissa introduced Morgan to Slender Man. For Morgan, it wasn't gradual, the belief was immediate and fervent. She didn't just read about him, she actually claimed she'd seen Slender Man herself.
Which adds a whole other layer, doesn't it?
Totally. So both girls became just desperately obsessed with meeting Slender Man. Totally consumed by this story they'd found online.
It's really unsettling how deeply this online stuff took root for them. For me, studying this kind of thing, what makes this particular belief system so compelling, so real for them, it's the insidious power of the lore itself. It wasn't just a story, was it? The narratives they were reading, especially on sites like Creepypasta Wiki, often came with these explicit rules, like how to interact. And the lore they got into stated that to meet Slender Man, to prove yourself worthy, you had to offer him a sacrifice. This chilling requirement, born from fiction from an online story, led to this just tragic, horrifying choice. Their friend, Payton, the kind one, she became their intended sacrifice. What we're seeing here isn't just blurred lines, it's almost like a cognitive hijacking. Their minds fundamentally accepted this digital lore as dictating real-world actions, real consequences.
And what makes it even more chilling is the planning. This wasn't impulsive. Morgan and Anissa meticulously planned this attack for 6 months. 6 months. They discussed every single detail. Where it would happen, how they'd do it, the weapon, and crucially, how they'd lure Payton into the woods somewhere isolated. The date they picked was Morgan's 12th birthday party. May 2014. Payton would be sleeping over, and Payton's parents, they had no idea. They trusted Morgan's family completely, let their daughter go for the sleepover. Just imagine that trust.
Yeah. And
the betrayal. Their first attempt at the sleepover itself, it failed. The plan was to wake Payton at 2 a.m., tape her mouth, stab her in her sleep. But when the time came, they hesitated. They said they felt too sleepy, not brave enough.
Just kids, really, despite the horrific plan.
Yeah. Morgan suggested they do it the next day. So the next morning, they went to a place called David Park. Anissa suggested stabbing Payton in a public restroom there. She thought the drains would, wash away the evidence. Anissa even tried to knock Payton out, hitting her forehead. But she couldn't bring herself to hit hard enough. It just confused Payton, who clue what was going on. Then came the final push. The climax in the woods. Morgan and Anissa convinced Payton to play hide-and-seek in the woods next to the park. They promised they'd play whatever Payton wanted afterwards. That was the lure. Once they were deep enough in the woods, Anissa gave Morgan the signal. They tackled Payton to the ground. Morgan pulled out a 5-inch kitchen knife she'd brought from her house, and she stabbed Payton. Repeatedly. 19 times. All over her body. One wound. God, one wound was just a millimeter away from a major artery near her heart. A millimeter. It would have killed her instantly.
Unbelievably close.
After the attack, Morgan and Anissa just left her there. They told her they were going to get help, told her to lie still. But they knew. They intended for her to die there, alone. But Payton, she fought. Critically injured, losing so much blood, she fought for her life with incredible courage. Somehow she managed to crawl out of those dense woods, made her way towards the road, and then, by just sheer luck, really, a cyclist named Greg Steinberg found her. He was taking a different route that day than usual.
Pure chance.
Pure chance. He saw her, covered in blood, and immediately called 911. And Payton amazingly stayed conscious. She was able to tell the first officers who arrived that Morgan had attacked her. She was rushed into surgery. Doctors fought desperately to save her. Her parents got the call, but they didn't know how bad it was until they saw her in the ER, covered in blood. I can't even imagine. Police immediately started searching for Morgan and Anissa. They found the girls not long after, just walking by the side of a road. They were heading towards the Kettle Moraine National Forest, still believing, even then, that they were on their way to Slender Man's mansion.
The delusion was that strong.
Yeah. And they found evidence of it, too. Anissa had left a goodbye message saying she was going to be with Slender Man. They were separated, interrogated by police. Both girls stuck to their story. They maintained this unwavering belief that Slender Man made them do it, that he threatened their families if they didn't. Morgan showed no sadness, no remorse at all, just chillingly said it was, quote, something that had to be done, quote. Anissa, though, she reacted differently when she learned Payton had survived. She expressed surprise and relief, almost like reality was maybe starting to crack through, just a little.
And the police investigation quickly started uncovering some really crucial background stuff. Things that began to paint a clearer, though more disturbing picture. In Morgan's home, her room, it was filled with these really disturbing Slender Man drawings and defaced dolls with broken limbs, red stains meant to look like blood. Horrifying. But even more crucial, potentially, was Morgan's family history. Her father had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, which is, as you know, a severe mental disorder, characterized by these profound breaks from reality hallucinations, seeing or hearing things, and delusions, holding these intense false beliefs even when faced with evidence they aren't true. So this pointed towards a possible genetic predisposition in Morgan. Now, lots of kids get obsessed with things, right? But for someone with that kind of vulnerability, an intense obsession like this Slender Man thing, it can potentially provide the content for emerging psychosis, making it incredibly hard to tell the difference between just imagination and genuine mental illness. And Anissa, she was also pretty socially isolated, deeply into the creepypasta world, and shared Morgan's absolute, unshakable belief that Slender Man was real. So if you connect the dots, this case is just a chilling illustration of how this mix of powerful shared delusions, underlying mental health issues, and just completely uncontrolled access to potentially harmful online content can create this perfect storm. It can lead to real-world tragedy. The fictional became terrifyingly real for them, with devastating consequences. It really highlights the need to understand that complex interplay between, predisposition and environment in shaping a kid's reality.
So after they were caught, both girls went through extensive psychiatric evaluations. They needed to figure out their mental state. Could they even understand what they'd done?
And the diagnosis for Morgan confirmed what her family history and behavior suggested. She was indeed diagnosed with schizophrenia. Her father, who also struggled with the illness, later expressed just deep regret. He felt he should have recognized the warning signs earlier in his daughter's behavior. The dolls, the drawings. It really underscores how insidious mental illness can be and how hard it is for families to spot, especially in kids where symptoms might look like just an intense hobby or weird behavior at first.
And despite being only 12 years old, they were tried as adults. That's under Wisconsin law, which is different from a lot of other states. For instance, in Wisconsin, kids that age can be interrogated without their parents there. That became a big point of debate during the whole legal process.
Absolutely. It raises really tough questions about legal responsibility versus mental capacity, especially at that age.
Ultimately, the court reached its verdict. Both girls were found not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect.
Right. Which means, legally, they weren't held criminally responsible for what they did because of their severe mental illness at the time. So, as a result, they weren't sent to prison. They were committed to state psychiatric hospitals for treatment, for confinement. Anissa was sentenced to stay for a maximum of 37 years, Morgan for a maximum of 53 years, both subject to regular mental health checks to see if and when they might ever be safe to release. The focus is on treatment, rehabilitation, long-term supervision, not just punishment, given their mental state when the crime happened.
Wow. It's such a harrowing story. It really forces you to confront the unsettling power of belief, doesn't it? Especially when it grows in isolation, fueled by unchecked online content. It's just a stark reminder of how fragile that line between imagination and reality can be, and how easily it can break.
Absolutely. And the tragic events just highlight how critically important it is to foster open communication with kids, to monitor their media consumption, maybe not in a controlling way, but be aware, and to recognize those subtle, often hidden signs of mental health struggles before they escalate into something irreparable. It goes beyond just what they see online, but how they interpret it, how they internalize it, and what underlying vulnerabilities might make them particularly susceptible. It's really a call for greater digital literacy and mental health awareness for all of us.
So what really stands out to you about this chilling story listening today? How do we, as a society, how do we balance the incredible openness of the internet with that crucial need to protect and guide young minds through this digital landscape? It's a question that certainly lingers, a tough one. Thank you for joining us for this story. Take care, stay safe, and we'll be back next time with another intriguing story to unpack.